What's going on, Hokies fans? Welcome into the 2024 football season's first edition of our signature Buy or Sell. We got Will Stewart on set, Andy Bitter, Chris Coleman. I'm Giovanni Heater. And just like last year, what we're doing is we're coming up with lines and we're going to have everybody give their predictions. Now, we've shortened it and modified it just a little bit for the 2024 campaign. We have just 5 lines, putting that much pressure on it. We also have the fan vote incorporated this season, so you guys can have your engagement as well. We're going to track it throughout the year, and we're also making its own separate video package individually each week as well. That was Nick's idea. So great stuff over there. So without further ado, let's get into it. Buy or Sell 2024 is underway. Our first tidbit, undefeated at home. We'll start with Chris. What do you got?
Sell. They have not gone undefeated at home since, I believe, 2010.
Andy?
Yeah, for the same reason. I mean, it's tough. I know it's only 6 home games. I know it's not the most daunting schedule at home, but to not slip up in any of those games, I think it's just a tall order.
Will, what you got for you and David as well?
Right, so I'll be doing David's picks also. David says undefeated at home, sell. And I say sell also because that Clemson game is lurking at the end of the year, and usually those are when depth issues really start to manifest themselves. So I would like Tech's chances better earlier in the year, but I think later in the year, that's the one I've got them losing.
I think this is the only one in which everybody has agreed at this point. I said sell as well. We got Nick Brown's votes on our screen as well, and Nick went ahead and said that they sell. And then the fan vote going, again, you can vote on techsideline.com. We're going to put it up a couple days before the video comes out every single week. The fans also have sold by quite a large amount. 81% of the 2,000, just over 2,000 voters said that Virginia Tech will not go undefeated at home.
All right, you think about like the math behind it and like the win percentage chances, and you got to multiply those out. It's like it's pretty low to run the slate there. I mean, even if you're talking about 60-40 games in some of those, to be perfect in those 6 games it's just a very hard thing to do.
Only the top teams in the country do it.
It's unanimous. They're not going to go. I mean, that's the fans and all of us said sell. So they'll probably go unbeaten at home.
Yeah, that'd be something if they did. That'd be pretty impressive.
Yep. There we go. All right. Any defensive lineman on the Virginia Tech football team gets 10 sacks this season. We had APR stuck at 9.5 last year. Does anybody get to Daryl Tapp's 10 sacks in 2005? Chris?
Sell for me for that one as well. I think, APR is capable. He almost did it last year. I think there's going to be more consistent pressure this year, so I think there'll be more sacks to share. But when I really think about it, the more important thing to me is nobody's done that since 2005. It's so hard to do. Like, you've got to be healthy all year. Daryl Tapp was a second-round pick. Not to say that APR can't be a second-round pick or anything like that, but when something hasn't happened for 2 decades, I'm not going to pick it to happen until it does again, right?
I'm going to buy. I'm gonna go the other way. I mean, APR was so close last year, and I really thought he had it in that UVA game, and he actually could have had it over the last couple games because I think he got to 9 with a couple games left.
I think you're right.
And then the bowl game was weird, where the weather, nobody's going to throw the ball that much. So I think you give them a 13-game season. I think if he comes out of the gate like he did last year, I think he's got a shot.
So you're going in 13 games? I thought the synopsis
was this for the regular season.
This is regular season.
This is the regular season. 0 postseason.
Well,
I should have mentioned.
Still buying.
I'm still buying, but I mean, when we talk about 10 sack seasons, it does include the bowl game stats now.
Correct.
Historically, when you talk about it.
Will, what you got?
So David and I differ on this one. David is buying. And I think an argument for buying is that Aeneas Peebles will flush quarterbacks out to the edges where the defensive ends can get to them easier. So I like that argument for buying. I'm selling because I think as a team they'll have more sacks, but I do not think any of the individuals will get to 10.
I'm also going to sell on this. My philosophy behind it is there's just too much wealth to spread now, right? You have more guys that you can lean on. APR might not have to play as many snaps, get a little bit of rest, keep him fresh with your depth at the end spot. And obviously your tackles are never going to have as many sacks as your ends, but with Peebles gobbling up some attention as well, I just think, like to Will's point, the wealth will be a little bit more spread. I'm going to sell on that. Andy does have a strong strong argument there, though. And then Nick also sold on that for the Hokies having a defensive lineman get 10 sacks. All right, the fan vote for 10 or more sacks. Let's see. The fans have bought. The fans agree with Andy and think that a Hokie will have 10 or more sacks. So
good
there
to
you
see
go.
there aren't all haters out there like on this set.
What percentage is it?
The percentage is 78% of the 2,000, just over 2,000 voters said that the Hokies would have a 10-plus sack performer. There you go. All right, let's go on to the team will have 10 or more interceptions. They had just 7 last season. 3 of them were from Dorian Strong. Let's switch the order a little bit. Let's go Will first.
David is selling that one. This is one of 2 things we disagree on. He's selling that the team will have 10 interceptions. I'm buying it, but just barely. And the reason I chose to buy it is, as you mentioned, they only had 7 last year. The reason I chose to buy it is that I think the D-line as a group will get better pressure this year, and that leads to more mistakes by quarterbacks. So I think that's how it'll happen.
I'm selling this one. Do you know where Virginia Tech is ranked in the ACC in interceptions the last 2 years?
Dead last, I believe.
Dead last. Both years. 2022, they had 4. So I know historically Virginia Tech has had a bunch of interceptions, but haven't had a lot under this coaching staff with Derek Jones back there. And sometimes that's just sort of chance. Like you don't get a lot of passes thrown your way that are interceptable, or you don't have them in 3rd and long, or that's where you see a lot of those pile up over the years. But I don't know. They just haven't done it yet. So I guess I'm going to have to see it, even though I really like their cornerbacks. I think they're really good cornerbacks that they have, the top 2 there. I will sell this one.
I'm going to buy it because I think Tech will be better at stopping the run this year.
Bingo.
And there will be more 3rd and 8s. And I also think Tech will be playing from the lead a little bit more than they did last year. So more 3rd and 8s while other teams are 10, 14 points behind. You got to throw more. That'll lead to more picks.
I also bought this one, and my philosophy was similar. The fact that, Chris, like we talked about in our defensive preview, well, the pass game wasn't really tested much because teams were so efficient running the football, especially early in the season against Virginia Tech. If you shore up the run defense, you got to pass it a little bit more. The law of averages plays in a little bit there, and I just think Tech all across the board defensively, like, the big reason this defense, the big thing they can do to take that next step is create more havoc plays and take away the football. Not a lot of fumbles, not a lot of interceptions, not a lot of turnovers created. I think that they have an uptick this season, and they get to that 10 spot. Nick
you've got to get some of those Hail Mary interceptions, like
Sure.
at halftime or stuff. That's a good way to boost that number.
Those cheap ones.
Sure. Nick also bought it. He thinks the Hokies will get 10 or more interceptions. And then the fan vote was a buy as well. This one, 62% of the 2,000 voters said that the Hokies would get 10 or more picks. All right, moving on to our next one. Kyron Drones, 30 or more touchdowns. Drones had 4,300 all-purpose yards last year. No, I'm sorry. That was a part of the line. Forget that. That was a part of the line that Nick scratched out and was like, let's stick to the 30 touchdowns. Does he get 30 touchdowns? That's combining both passing and rushing. We'll start with Andy.
I sold this one. I think Drones is going to have a very good season. 30 is a big number. And, they have a very capable goal line back in Bashal Tootin, who scores a lot of touchdowns. So I think that, takes away some rushing opportunities for Drones that he might otherwise have. But, say Drones, runs for 6, which I think is a good number for him this year. 24 touchdown passes seems like a lot. I mean, in the history of Virginia Tech, that's quite a bit, even with this receiving core that they have. So I sold on this one, even though I'm very high on Kyron Drones.
I bought it, but it was the one I feel least confident about. I didn't really have any great reasoning for doing it. I do think Tech's going to score a lot this year. I don't think I wanted to. I think the main reason I did it, though, is I didn't want to sell 3 times.
Sure.
It seems a little too negative for a team that I'm very positive about on the whole. But I bought it, but barely, and I don't feel great about it.
Will?
David and I are both buying this one. I looked it up, and I think Drones averaged passing and running about 2.1 touchdowns per game last year, and that was that included a couple of games where they didn't quite have their offensive scheme figured out. So I'm like Chris, I'm buying it, but and Andy makes the point that that's a lot of touchdowns. One of the things I hate about these buy and sells is it's never easy. The numbers that you guys pick are really
it's
good.
It's designed that way.
If it was easy, it would be very entertaining to listen to.
But I never
Kyron
look at
Drones
one.
over 12 touchdowns. Like, yes, buy, of course.
But if it was like 25, I'd be like, he's going over that. But 30, 35, I'd be like, that's ridiculous.
I
He's not
also
doing
want
that.
to point out that he might catch a touchdown pass this year from Schlee. Tech is running trick plays this year. They're going to play Schlee at some point, and he's going to pass the football when they're both in the game at the same time.
You've been drinking beers with Brent Pry and he's been giving away secrets?
Clip that and put
I'm
it
just
on
saying
YouTube.
it would only make sense. In fact, we saw a little part of practice yesterday where they were practicing trick plays. So
No
and
details.
I'm not going to
we
tell
just
you
saw
what those trick plays were. They're still working on them. But I'm just saying, like, he might be stuck on 29, and then against UVA or something, he catches a touchdown pass. Remember, receptions count. This is total touchdowns. Always remember that's a possibility.
Of course, it would be the UVA game that they pull that out of the bag.
Do we know how many players in Virginia Tech history have had 30 touchdowns in a year?
Do you have the answer?
If anybody did,
I'm looking it up. I think it might just be Gerard Evans.
Really?
wow.
I think so. Because
Logan Thomas?
Logan
Thomas
Nah,
in
I don't
2011
think so.
had 19 passing and 10 rushing. So he had 29.
There you go.
And that includes bowl.
And that includes a bowl game.
Yeah. I think Gerard Evans in his 1 year here did. But I'm having trouble.
I guess
calling
did Tyrod do it as a senior?
I don't think he did
Okay.
because I think he was 23-5.
Okay.
See, this is supposed to be a short video, but here we go.
There we go.
Drones.
Second podcast of the day.
There we go. Drones had 19 touchdowns last year, but he did have 3 in the bowl game, 2 passing and 1 rushing. So during the regular season, he had 16 with my almost communications degree math there. But so I got Drones. I bought it. 30 touchdowns. It's a high number. It really is. But if they're going to take that style, like, look, he didn't play 3 games. Obviously, the offense didn't get implemented until really after that 4th game and that 1-3 start.
I don't expect Tech to have a Louisville this year where they don't score a single touchdown.
Sure.
I don't know. They have to go to Syracuse. Never know. I'm just saying. Do we know how many? Trivia question: how many touchdowns did Gerard Evans account for in 2016?
I'll guess, since he said over 30, 32.
I was going to guess 33.
38.
41.
God.
Wow.
Quit hating on Gerard Evans,
Wow.
the haters out there. 41, 29 passing, 12 rushing.
Sheesh.
I mean,
workhorse, man.
like you remember that season how good he was, and then you look at the stats, like, man, he was really, really good.
How many
and that
picks?
didn't get all ACC anything.
That's crazy.
8
well,
picks.
You had NFL players.
Still, he was better
yeah.
than Trubisky that year.
Fair.
I thought that was I thought that was a garbage vote. I thought it was driven by North Carolina media that
No
knew Trubisky and had seen him. I'm not going to argue with
Sure.
Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson at the top, but at Trubisky number 3, I think Gerard outplayed him that year.
41 tuds, 8 picks.
That's
29 passing, 8 picks, 12 rushing touchdowns.
That's pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good right there. Nick bought this as well. So it looks like, what do we have? Almost everybody bought it except one.
What the fans say.
And then the fans on this one said that they bought it. They bought it. 62% said Kyron Drones will have 30 plus touchdowns, which is weird that it's the same percentage that had the 10 plus interceptions. That is bizarre. That is bizarre. And the number of voters, it's so weird, guys. If you're going to vote for everything. Some people voted for, like, you got some votes has 2,041 votes. Others have 1,998 votes. And so we're off by about 50 people on some of these.
That's
so
weird.
if you're going to vote for all 5 of them for sure. Last but not least, and this is kind of the overhanging big time, 9 or more wins. The line by Vegas is set at 8.5, so we put it at 9 or more. Does Virginia Tech get to that 9 or more win mark? We'll start with Will.
David and I are both buying it, but I'm sure it's by the slimmest of margins. I think most people agree that if the team stays healthy, that the floor this year is 8. But the ceiling isn't a lot higher than that because you got to go to Miami on a Friday night. You got to play Clemson at home. And you have the trip to the Dome, and we've talked about that ad nauseum. So 9 is tight, but Dave and I are both buying.
I've got him 9-3, so I'm buying that as well. I think this will be a jump forward in the wins department.
Buy 9-3 for me as well.
I am also buying it. I got the Hokies at 9-3. Nick Brown is buying it. Nick, what do you got him? You got him 9-3 or you got him better? Yep, he's got 9-3. And the fan vote, they buy it. 75% of the voters. And this weirdly enough, this question at the bottom of the list got the most votes out of anything. 75% of Hokies fans said 9 or more wins. So I want to do a recap because Nick made...
First, this is clearly a Virginia Tech podcast, and people are going to be like, oh, you guys are just homers picking them. There's like national folks on board with the Hokies being a breakout team. Ralph Russo of the Associated Press picked them in the playoff. Brett McMurphy of the Action Network picked them in the playoff. So it's not just us thinking that we actually have more tempered expectations than those guys do.
Sure.
I don't necessarily think they're going to be a playoff team. It wouldn't shock me.
It'd be
if
awesome.
They were a dark horse team to get in there as a 10 seed or something like that. And how cool is it to be talking about the playoff and a 10 seed or 11 seed possibility like this stuff? But national people are talking about this kind of stuff too.
Tech is in that weird spot where they are considered a outside shot at the playoffs. Some people are picking them in the playoffs, but yet they're also unranked. It's a really odd position to be in, and it also shows you that yes, they've expanded the playoffs.
Perfect striking distance.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Yeah,
you don't want to be overhyped.
You're not overhyped, so you're not overconfident, but you have a chance, and you can stay hungry.
So let's draw a comparison. 1995, they lost the first 2 games of the year and wound up being ranked 10th in the country at the end of the season because they made that extended run. So you can make a run from outside the rankings.
Well, hopefully, if they start 0-2 this year, that we're in some bigger trouble because the schedule at the beginning it isn't quite as daunting. Let me paint this picture for you. How about like Brent McMurphy had him playing Ole Miss in Oxford, and Nick and I were saying even if they lost that game by 3 touchdowns, we're like, I love it. I don't even care. We went to the playoff. Like, that was awesome. Imagine they play because let's get real. Like in the NCAA tournament, like when they matched the women's team up to face off against Sean Poppy in the first round of the NCAA tournament, they know what they're doing with matchups. Imagine like in Happy Valley, Tech has to play Penn State in the first round or something. Like that would be
that's what's
awesome.
So cool about the playoff is these intriguing on-campus matchups they could have, and then they screw it up in the next round by going to these generic NFL stadiums. They don't have the college experience with it. I hope that they change that in the future. I doubt they will just because of the money aspect in it, but that's what I play the NCAA video game. You get to the playoff, as I did with New Mexico. Thank you very much. But it's like, this is so cool. Why did they wait so long to go to this? This is so much better and more fun than 4 teams. I feel like the people that were complaining about expanding the playoff, they'll get through it once, and it's going to be so fun and cool. And I mean, could you imagine Virginia Tech playing in that? That'd be great. That would be such a fun thing to cover.
And I could never have imagined it happening with a 4-team playoff.
No, that's part of it. It's like you had to be perfect. And even if you weren't perfect, they would take you sometimes in the playoff, as Florida State found out. That's why so many more teams are brought into the conversation now. I mean, even the group of 5 teams, the best one is going to be guaranteed a spot there, the conference champion. So I just think that this involves so much more of college football that before it kind of became 6 teams that were really even consideration.
What if something crazy happened if Virginia Tech hosted Liberty in the playoffs?
That'd be awesome.
It's not outside the realm of possibility.
That'd be like the 5-12 game. The Hokies would have to be darn good.
You'd have to be darn good. But it's not outside the realm of possibility.
Would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. All right. I think that wraps it up. Nick made some sweet graphics, so I'm going to go guy by guy here and just read things off. So put the camera on Will, Nick. Will ended up going undefeated at home. He sold it. Any defensive lineman gets 10 or more sacks. He sold it. Team, 10 or more interceptions. He bought it. Drones, 30 or more touchdowns. He bought it. And then 9 or more wins, he bought it. And then for David, undefeated at home, sell. The next one was a buy, a sell, a buy, and a buy. Flipping it over to Andy. Andy, undefeated at home, he sold it. Any defensive lineman, 10 or more sacks, he bought it. Team, 10 or more interceptions, sell. Drones, 30 or more touchdowns, sell. And then he bought 9 or more wins.
Those are the right answers, by the way.
Of course, always. And Andy did win last year, might I add, when it came. And I
haven't got my trophy yet for that. Is it something coming or my cash prize?
Yeah, it's right over your left shoulder there, the Commonwealth Cup.
Legitimately, where is my trophy? I want it. I'll display it in the garage proudly.
Well, I will give you a trophy for the best quesadillas because those were sensational.
I still have more of them in my fridge right now. Still eating some.
All right, Chris. We got Chris over here. Undefeated at home, he sold it. Any D-Lineman gets 10 or more sacks was a sell. Team 10 or more interceptions, he bought it. Drones 30 or more touchdowns, buy. And then 9 or more wins was a buy. For Nick, behind the scenes, undefeated at home was a sell. Any defensive lineman gets 10 or more sacks, sell. 10 plus picks, buy. 30 or more touchdowns for drones, buy. And then 9 or more wins, buy. And then for myself, pretty cool graphics, Nick. Undefeated at home, sell. Any D lineman, 10 or more sacks, sell. 10 plus picks, buy. 30 or more touchdowns, buy. And then 9 or more wins, buy. Finally, the fan vote. Of course, our faithful listeners. Virginia Tech, undefeated at home. They sold it. Virginia Tech, defensive lineman, 10 or more sacks. They bought it. The 10 or more interceptions, they bought it. They bought 30 or more touchdowns from Kyron Drones, and then 9 or more wins. Of course, the Hokies bought it. This is fun, guys. I'm excited to do this each and every week, and we'll kind of tweak it as we go along. So appreciate it.
I thought it was good.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. That wraps it up for buy or sell. Week 1 is just 9 days away. I guess when this gets released, 8 days away down in Nashville. Enjoy it. Enjoy the rest of the week. For Nick Brown, Will Stewart, David Cunningham, Andy Bitter, the fans, Chris Coleman, I'm Giovanni Heater. We'll see you next time.